Good evening, everyone. In 1991, I was a young, naive Indian Muslim girl who went against my community's conventional approach to girls and decided that I wanted to pursue a tertiary level education. It was a difficult road I chose. It wasn't just that I was adamant that I receive an education, but I decided to study something named sociology. So if you're going to study, well, at least do something like medicine, I was told. Then, of course, I was met with questions. But what will you be? How is that going to help your community? And then, of course, this one, does it pay? Will you make money? That was the beginning of a journey that I have found fulfilling in every way. And the reason I told you that story is because I want to weave my personal narrative into a discussion of why I think that a social sciences education is essential for the future development of Barbados. When I say social sciences, I include in that anthropology, political science, history, and of course, sociology. I find that there is some level of denigration of the softer social sciences. But these disciplines do something fundamental. They create an awareness of not just ours, but other societies. And I contend, how can we fashion a society's future in a positive way if we have no idea of the inner intricacies of how that society functions? My concentration is in sociology, but I have also delved into anthropology and political science. The thing about sociology is that it opens out very fascinating insights into how our personal experiences are actually connected to social situations. There's one fundamental rule that guides sociological understanding, and that is that all human behavior is directed by a social environment. And therefore, our social class, our race, our gender influence our life chances. And social stratification, the way that a society is organized in layers, has implications for individual lives in some very significant ways. Taking this sociological approach has actually helped me with many of my personal experiences. Growing up as the child of immigrants, I was constantly aware of my race, my gender, and my social class. And the sociological insights offered me a language of explanation because from the time I was young, I understood that I was different, but I had no words to express these feelings. So I was able then to understand that I was different, but that was complicated by my social class status within my community itself. So as a woman, but as a woman coming from a family that was not considered to be important, I was met head on with certain expectations. So there was a script that I was supposed to follow. And this script included early marriage and an acceptance of my place in the society. But here's the thing. I didn't want to accept those expectations. I didn't want to play my role. I wasn't an actress. So, it was all these contradictions that shaped my interest in sociology. Sociology has helped me to make sense of all those contradictions. The thing about sociologists is that they argue that people reflect a society's culture. So you might find that individuals express feelings or perspectives or thoughts, but they're actually the internalized understandings of that group of people. So sometimes we think that we're expressing our individuality, but in effect, we're actually relying on what we're socialized into. So I've found that in Barbados, we like to individualize young people's so-called faults, whether it's violence in schools, delinquency, low educational attainment. We blame the individual young person, but aren't young people the products of their socialization? Is our education system nurturing the strengths of our children, or are we forcing our children into a one-size-fits-all system that actually contributes to their failures? All this talk about context, but how does that explain my personal narrative if sociological understanding states that we reflect our societies? Well, then that reasoning doesn't really fit into my personal narrative. Sociologists actually maintain that there's a part of ourself, our personality, that is natural. This George Mead, one of the classical sociologists, he referred to that part as the I, and he said that part sometimes supersedes our socialization. The me, he said, is that part that we are socialized into, that represents society in us. So my friends and colleagues all maintain that I have high levels of the I. So it wasn't just maybe, that I had a high level of an I, but what might have helped to keep me firm on this journey was also the perspectives offered by other social sciences. The work of feminist theorist Audre Lorde, for example, constantly resonated with me. She has argued that it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. So it was all those things that would have helped me to make a constant progress in the social sciences. I continue to explore the social context versus individuality in my research. In one instance, I sought to find out how different ethnic groups in Barbados perceive issues of race and their location within the Barbadian society. And what I found is that I uncovered a lot of uncomfortable truths. Different groups in Barbados are bound by certain privileges and limitations. What I found, one of the uncomfortable truths that I came up with in my research is that there is some type of denial of privilege among the higher classes in Barbados. The sociologist Peter Berger, he has argued that things are not what they seem, and this approach to me highlights a lot of what my research states. The sociologist tends to delve below the surface of society and uncovers all those things that we might not ordinarily see or might not be socialized to see. And therefore, some of these uncomfortable truths, I argue, we need to deal with in order to move forward and craft a fate. Knowing all of this, how do we move forward and craft the future? How do we fashion the future? I like to go back to context. Look at us here today, so much diversity. And what did we come out to hear? We came out to hear about crafting a fate and a future for Barbados. This island presents a very interesting scenario. Once the ideal sugar-based slave economy that has a very troubled past, rooted in racial inequalities, how do we see ourselves moving forward in a post-independence era? We're dealing with many, many social changes that we can't keep up with. Higher levels of crime, poverty, social alienation. There seems to be some level of mistrust between different ethnic and racial groups in the society. I contend that a social science education will create that collective awareness a national identity that will help us to move forward. And it can be done, but we need to understand our society. The sociologist Peter Berger, again, he has told us that studying sociology entails us experiencing a culture shock minus a geographical displacement. And by that, he meant that we need sometimes to step outside of our society and look in as if we're strangers, as if we're outsiders. And that in itself can create a certain level of awareness. And I contend that it's something we might need to do in order to craft the faith and move forward. Thank you.